So what's really funny is being the last speaker, you listen to all these dudes and ladies, and they're fantastic. Like Keo, had a great presentation, and then this guy's talking about salmon, and this guy's got games, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, damn, all I got is this notepad, But that's what my talk is about. Learning isn't about competing with people or competing with anything, but yourself and being yourself, and it's a very personal thing. And so a couple weeks ago, Mike and Malcolm invited me to speak here, and they wanted me to talk about learning. So I made a list of the 5 things I learned the most from. Number 5 is Don Vito from The Godfather. You all know him. Number 4 was Charles Barkley. Number 3 was hip-hop. Bulletproof wallets. Ghost is so friendly making breakfast for Ray. Number 2 was Jonathan Swift's A Modest Proposal, so desiccating a pot of potatoes. And of course, number 1, this should be everybody's number 1, your moms, right? So that's your moms. And I looked at these 5 things and I said to myself, 4 out of the 5 are things I didn't learn in school. And I did some math, I busted out my abacus, and I found out you spend 16,380 hours in school just between the ages of 5 and 18, and that's if you never go to school after high school. And I said to myself, if I spend 16,000 hours somewhere, I would want to come out with more than an essay written by an Irish guy in 1792. And it reminded me of Jadakiss. He's like, you could go to jail and come out with your teeth fixed. And I was like, I didn't even get that from high school. So, as an 80s baby, right, I grew up on Blockbuster. I was like stealing CDs from Sam Goody. I was watching TV, and the internet came around, and I was like, this is amazing, The porno moves, but... But, I had a lot of good teachers, but I immersed myself in pop culture and divorced myself from institutional education at a really early age. And those teachers, I still talk to them, and they even agree with me that the teach but don't piss off the PTA approach to learning in schools is super, super paralyzing, because the politics du jour is always driving the way you learn and what you're learning in school. And I remember early on, I saw like disclaimers on Darwin, and I saw the school lunch they were giving us. They would put me in a food coma every day, and I just did not trust school or anybody involved in it. And it was that distrust that taught me a one-size-fits-all education may produce professionals, but it does not produce the thinkers that our generation needs. And when it comes to learning, it's just me, myself, and why. Now, for me, everything starts with questions, and I'm a naturally left-handed person, but growing up down south, I went to school, and they told me, you got to use your right hand. You're going to have an easier life if you use your right hand. This is the hand of the devil. And it made no sense to me, but I'm now actually right-handed, even though I'm a natural lefty. It's crazy. And we would have Chinese New Year, and I'd have to go to school, and me and my parents never understood why everybody got all their holidays off, and we had to go to school on Chinese New Year. And when I asked these questions, there were no answers. There were only cultural judgments. And finally, in high school, I read the beatniks, and I loved the beatniks. And we finally got to learn about and analyze music in school through Bob Dylan. And I was like, this is dope. But if we're learning the beatniks, why are we not studying beats, rhymes, and life? I asked that question, and there were no answers, just judgments. And that's when I stepped outside, and I found the abstract listening to hip-hop. My pops used to say it reminded him of bebop. I said, well, Daddy, don't you know that things go in cycles? The way that Bobby Brown is just amping like Michael. It's all expected. Things are for the looking. If you got the money, there you go. There you go, all right? There's one person. The one person took the same class I did, ATCQ. What up? And hip-hop, I didn't learn. The thing that hip-hop taught me the most is not from the content, but from the way other people perceived hip-hop. Because I saw how important hip-hop was and how powerful it was, and I saw how people disrespected it, and it taught me to mistrust and question things. Now, education to me, it's most important that education is bespoke. all right? It should be personal, it should be tailored. It should not be about grades or SAT scores, even though I did fantastic in those things. No, you should compete with yourself, you know? And when I went to college, you're supposed to declare a major, and I couldn't do it. I liked everything, but the one thing I knew was that my brain is a weapon, and I want it to be as strong as possible. And clearly, smoking weed and eating gummy bears is hypocritical, but when I was not doing that, I was buried in books. I was absolutely buried in books. And I read books, and I felt like reading books was like debating with dead people in the margins, because a lot of people would read books and they were passive. I would see their books, and there were no writings in the columns, there was no highlighting, there was no earmarks. If you looked at my book, it looked like I literally wiped my brain with it. It was torn up, it was covered in highlights, notes, talking to the guy like, I can't believe you said that, I don't think that makes sense. Like, I argued with these people, and even if they didn't assign papers, I'd write papers. Just because I felt that learning had to be active, it had to be a conversation. And I love books because it was like, yo, this is your interview with William Shakespeare. This is your few hours reading this book to pick an exceptionally great human being's brain, and I got everything I needed out of it. But we all know these days that it's not just about books. People need to find mediums that speak to them, whether they're games, whether they're music, sports, movies, conversations late night at Schiller's. Everybody learns in different ways, and the definitions and boundaries of learning have shifted so that you could learn the same thing reading Julius Caesar that you could watching The Fall of Stringer Bell and The Wire. And my favorite story is my best friend from high school. We're going to call him Christopher. Christopher was learning disabled, dyslexic, and his parents paid me to tutor him in math. And I always felt really weird about it because I was like, yo, I love this man, I respect him, and he's just as smart, if not smarter than me. But when neon lights went on at school, he couldn't read words, letters, or numbers. They all became jumbled to him. And we'd see him. His dad would give him a lot of yard work, and when he built his new house, him and his brother cleared the lot. They didn't even pay someone to clear the lot. Him and his brother did it by hand, and they even helped build the house. And my mom was always like, dude, this kid is a genius with his hands outside. And no one really paid much attention. They looked down on it. But he now went to LSU, graduated, was one of the best students in his calculus class, went to Australia for graduate school, and now is a professor teaching environmentally sustainable construction and design. And it just goes to show that we're looking in genius in the wrong places. And we need to expand our search because we're not giving people the opportunities they need to change the world. And every day you have opportunities. People ask me, yo, how did you become such an ill chef or cook? I was like, look, you have 3 classes a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If you're not taking advantage of that, you're a fool, right? And if I have to, because I have 5 seconds, if I were to boil learning down to one skill or activity, I'd say it's analysis. Whether it's English, math, or basket weaving, you need to learn to independently analyze and interact with the world, like vocab, memorization tests, anything that attempts to force a canon of knowledge onto an individual. We should not be doing that. What we should be teaching are analytical skills, because if you gain the ability to absorb, see, and break things down, you can learn anything you want. We shouldn't be making cultural judgments on what people should know. We should be focused on giving people the ability to know. Thank you.
You can't tell me nothing about this coke. Can't tell me nothing about this crack, this weed, and my hustling niggas. Niggas on the corner. I ain't forget.
That was your exit music. All right, so that concludes our second session. I just wanted to point out a couple of things that really stood out to me about all those speakers and the main theme that came out of their really diverse topics. It's all about collaboration. So Keo said if you want to learn something, you have to ask it. Charles said you shouldn't have to wait. Just let other people help you get to where you want to be. Aaron talked all about collaboration and problem solving and not being siloed, being collaborative. And then Eddie, I mean, that was a great story about how sometimes to be successful, you just have to have a little bit of help, whether that's becoming a chef, becoming a professor. And so leading into the next session, after the break that we have coming up, we're going to be talking about how to access other people, all the information around you. And we'll be hearing from some really, really interesting folks. In the meantime, you've got another 30-minute break. And in the spirit of collaboration, I just wanted to have our Skillshare team members, our master teachers, and our community ambassadors stand up. so you can see who they are, recognize the people who've been super active in our community, who've helped build this community. So now you have my permission to go find those people, harass them, pick their brains, ask them what brought them here today, what class they took last, what they want to learn next, and we'll see you back here in 30 minutes.
A strong word called consignment, strictly for live men, not for freshmen. If you ain't got the clientele, say